For 3,000 years, the galaxy had known peace. The Galactic Council, a union of the most powerful civilizations, had ensured that war was a thing of the past. Conflicts were settled through diplomacy, trade, and mutual agreements. No species had dared to break this peace, until now. The Craxian Empire had always believed in strength. They were a warrior race, bred for conquest, their massive reptilian forms covered in thick armor-like scales. While the rest of the galaxy had softened under peace, the Craxians had grown stronger, training their armies and expanding their fleet in secret. To them, peace was nothing more than weakness disguised as wisdom. And now, they were ready to prove it. Warlord Vezrith stood on the bridge of his massive warship, the Devourer, staring at the holographic display of the Milky Way. His golden eyes narrowed as they focused on one particular world, Earth. "Are you certain about this?" one of his advisors asked. "The humans have never fought in a galactic war before. They have no history of conquest." "Exactly," Vezrith growled. "They are weak. They have spent 3,000 years playing politics while we sharpened our claws. The Council fears them because of their technology, but technology is useless without the will to fight." His advisor hesitated. "There are rumors, Warlord. Some species say that humans are unpredictable." Vezrith let out a deep, rumbling laugh. "Unpredictable? No, they are cowards. The moment they see our fleet, they will surrender." He turned to his officers. "Send the declaration of war. Inform the humans that the Craxian Empire is claiming their world. They have one solar cycle to submit. If they refuse, we will burn their planet to ash." The command was sent. Across the galaxy, a ripple of fear spread as news of the Craxian Declaration reached the Galactic Council. No one had dared to start a war in 3 millennia. No one except the Craxians. On Earth, the message was received by the United Earth government. Leaders, generals, and advisors gathered in a secure facility deep beneath the surface, reading the transmission with quiet amusement. President Elaine Carter leaned back in her chair, raising an eyebrow. "They're serious." General Marcus Reynolds chuckled. "Oh, they're serious, Madam President. They think we're weak." Carter sighed. "I suppose we should respond diplomatically first." The room erupted in laughter. Diplomatic? With the Craxians? Everyone knew that was pointless. Reynolds smirked. "I have a better idea." He turned to his communication officer. "Send them a message back." The officer nodded. "What should we say?" Reynolds grinned. "Tell them. Bring it on." The message was sent. On the Devourer, Warlord Vezrith's eyes widened in disbelief. He had expected fear, pleas for mercy, perhaps even immediate surrender. Instead, the humans had responded with mockery. "They dare to challenge us," he growled. "Fine. If they wish to die, then so be it. Begin the invasion." The Craxian war fleet, the most powerful armada the galaxy had seen in centuries, turned toward Earth. Their ships, each the size of floating cities, blotted out the stars as they approached. Their soldiers, battle-hardened and relentless, prepared to storm the surface. The war had begun, and humanity was ready to laugh. The Craxian fleet entered the solar system with overwhelming force. Hundreds of warships, armed with planet-cracking weapons, moved toward Earth like an unstoppable tide. Warlord Vezrith stood on the bridge of the Devourer, his golden eyes locked onto the blue-green world ahead. "Scan their defenses," he ordered. His officers worked quickly, and soon the results appeared on the holographic display. "Minimal orbital defenses," one officer reported. "Their ships are scattered, outdated. No planetary shields, no deep space artillery." Vezrith smirked. "Pathetic. The humans are exactly as weak as I expected." He straightened. "Open a channel. Let them hear their doom." A transmission was sent to Earth. Seconds later, a human face appeared on Vezrith's screen. It was a man in a military uniform, casually leaning back in his chair, sipping a steaming beverage. He had a relaxed smirk on his face, as if this was nothing more than an everyday meeting. "This is General Marcus Reynolds of Earth's Defense Force," the man said. "You must be Warlord Lizardface." Vezrith's nostrils flared. "I am Warlord Vezrith, leader of the Craxian Empire, conqueror of 100 worlds. I have come to claim your planet. Surrender now, or be annihilated." Reynolds took another sip of his drink. Let me think about that." He stared off into space for a moment, then grinned. "Yeah, no, we're good." Vezrith clenched his fists. "You dare mock us." Reynolds chuckled. "Buddy, you just rolled up to our planet thinking we'd bow down because you look scary. That's hilarious. You ever heard of a joke?" "Oh, wait. Of course not. You guys have zero sense of humor." Vezrith's tail flicked angrily. "Enough of this nonsense. If you will not surrender, then you will burn." Reynolds held up a finger. Wait, before you start with all the doom and destruction, we have a message for you." Vezrith narrowed his eyes. "What message?" Reynolds tapped a button on his console. "This." The transmission changed. Instead of military threats, instead of pleas for peace, the Craxians were greeted with something unexpected. A human comedy special. On every Craxian warship, every screen lit up with a loud, energetic human voice. A comedian stood on a brightly lit stage, microphone in hand, talking about aliens. "So, you ever notice how every invading alien race thinks we're just gonna roll over and surrender?" The comedian joked. "Like, buddy, we've been fighting each other for thousands of years. You think we're scared of you? Please, we made nukes before we made proper cell phones." Laughter erupted from the human audience in the video. The Craxians, however, stood frozen. "What is this?" Vezrith demanded. Reynolds' face returned to the screen, grinning. "That, my scaly friend, is called comedy. We figured we'd give you a show before the fight starts. You know, as a warm-up." Vezrith bared his fangs. "Enough of this foolishness. Attack." The Craxian fleet moved into position, weapons charging. But before they could fire, something unexpected happened. The human ships moved. Not in standard military formations, not in predictable attack patterns. They zigzagged, they spun, they twisted in ways that made no tactical sense. And all the while, they kept talking. One human pilot, broadcasting on open channels, laughed. "Oh man, these guys are actually serious." "Hey, Vezrith, do you guys know what dodging is?" Another chimed in. "They probably don't. Too busy flexing their muscles and growling all the time." The Craxian gunners hesitated. They had never fought an enemy that mocked them during battle. Then the real fight began. The first Craxian cruiser fired a plasma barrage at a human ship. The human vessel tilted at an impossible angle, letting the shots miss entirely. A second later, it returned fire, not with deadly beams, but with EMP pulses. Craxian ships went dark, their systems shutting down. More human ships swarmed in, moving in unpredictable, chaotic ways. They used decoys, holograms, and most humiliatingly, sent messages directly to the Craxian fleet. One Craxian officer stared in horror at his screen as a human message appeared. "Nice shot. Just kidding. Try again, buddy." The Craxians didn't just lose the battle. They were humiliated. As the remains of the Craxian fleet retreated, Warlord Vezrith sat in stunned silence. The humans had fought differently. They had treated war like a game. And worst of all, they had laughed in the face of his might. For the first time in his life, Vezrith felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. The war had just begun, and humanity was having fun. Warlord Vezrith paced the command deck of the Devourer, his claws clicking against the metal floor. He couldn't understand it. The humans should have been terrified. They should have begged for mercy. Instead, they fought with mockery and games. The first battle was not just a loss, it was an embarrassment. His officers avoided his gaze, afraid of his wrath. The humans fight in an unusual manner, one of his advisors hesitantly said. Vezrith snarled. Unusual? They mock war itself. Their ships dance around like fools. Their pilots laugh during battle. And what was that? That nonsense they sent to our fleet. Memes, warlord, the officer muttered. Vezrith's eye twitched. Memes. Yes, warlord. It appears to be a form of psychological warfare. Our soldiers receive thousands of human messages containing humorous images, strange symbols, and words that make no sense. The officer hesitated before continuing. Morale among our troops has dropped significantly. Some are refusing to engage in battle. Vezrith's claws dug into the armrest of his throne. This was unacceptable. The Craxian Empire had crushed hundreds of civilizations, reducing mighty empires to dust. And now, an inferior species was mocking them. No, this war would end now. Prepare the ground invasion, Vezrith growled. We will not waste time with space battles. We will land on their planet, take their cities, and show them what real war looks like. The order was given. Craxian dropships roared toward Earth, carrying thousands of elite warriors, each ready to bring destruction. The plan was simple. Hit the major cities, take control, and force humanity to surrender. The Craxians expected resistance, but they also expected humans to finally take them seriously. They were wrong. The moment the Craxian soldiers landed, they were greeted not with fear, but confusion. Their first encounter was in New York City. As soon as the Craxians marched into the streets, weapons raised, they were met with the sound of cheering. Thousands of humans stood on the sidewalks, holding signs that read, Welcome to Earth, space lizards. Invaders, lol, okay. Do you even lift, bro? Some even threw confetti. The Craxians hesitated. Were they being welcomed? This wasn't how invasions were supposed to go. Where was the screaming? The panic? Then, loudspeakers blasted through the city. A deep voice announced, Congratulations, Kraxians, UAAVENTEREDV Earth Invasion CKM Pioneership. Good luck. Vezrith, watching the invasion from his ship, slammed his fist against the control panel. What is happening down there? His officers stared in horror. The humans had turned war into a joke. Every time the Craxians tried to advance, humans would pull strange, unpredictable tactics. Some ran at them unarmed, holding rubber chickens. Others dressed up in alien costumes, pretending to be Craxians. And then came the pranks. The Craxians stormed into a large building, expecting to find human leaders. Instead, the floor collapsed beneath them, dropping them into a giant pit of soft foam cubes. In another city, Craxian troops entered a human bunker, only to find themselves bombarded by thousands of bouncing balls. Everywhere they went, humans found ways to turn combat into chaos. And yet, through all the insanity, one thing became clear. Humanity wasn't losing. They were using humor, tricks, and psychological warfare. But beneath all of it, they were winning. The Craxians couldn't keep up. Their morale was shattered. Soldiers hesitated before firing, confused and frustrated. Vezrith clenched his fists. This wasn't a war. It was humiliation. And it was only getting worse. Vezrith could not believe what he was seeing. The mightiest warriors of the Craxian Empire, unstoppable conquerors of countless worlds, were being reduced to clowns. They had trained for centuries in the art of war, but nothing had prepared them for this. Reports flooded in from every battlefield. Craxian soldiers were abandoning their positions, refusing to fight. Not because they were losing in combat, but because the humans refused to take the war seriously. Instead of fear, they responded with laughter, absurd tactics, and unpredictable chaos. In one city, Craxian troops entered a government building, expecting to capture Earth's leaders. Instead, they found themselves in a massive room filled with balloons. As soon as they stepped inside, hidden fans activated, sending thousands of balloons swirling around them. The warriors, unable to see, panicked, firing wildly at the floating, harmless objects. By the time they realized their mistake, humans had surrounded them, laughing. Another report came from a battlefield in Europe. A Craxian platoon stormed what appeared to be a fortified human position, only to find themselves pelted by thousands of water balloons. The humans had filled the entire area with strange, slippery liquid that made it impossible for the Craxians to keep their balance. Soldiers fell over, their weapons slipping from their claws. Instead of pressing the attack, the humans just stood there, filming the chaos with their devices and laughing. But the worst humiliation happened in Asia. A Craxian general led his troops into what they thought was an abandoned city. They advanced cautiously, their weapons ready, expecting an ambush. Instead, the humans had left behind massive digital billboards. As soon as the Craxians stepped into the city center, the screens activated, playing endless videos of human comedians, memes, and clips of people saying, "You're trying so hard, buddy. Just give up." The Craxians, already confused and exhausted, were bombarded with laughter. Vesrith slammed his fists onto his command chair. This cannot be happening. His empire had conquered dozens of worlds, crushed civilizations without resistance. But the humans, they didn't play by the rules. Every strategy, every tactic the Craxians used was rendered useless by sheer insanity. "This is not war," Vesrith roared. "This is mockery. These humans are not warriors. They are mad. We cannot fight an enemy that treats war as a joke." His officers remained silent. They had no solutions, no counter-strategy. They had studied countless species, but never had they encountered a civilization that weaponized humor. Then came the final blow. A transmission appeared on the Devourer's main screen. It was General Marcus Reynolds, once again sipping a hot drink, looking completely relaxed. "Hey, Lizard Lord," Reynolds grinned. "I gotta say, this has been hilarious. Your troops are doing great." "Well, actually, no, they're doing terrible. But hey, A for effort." Vesrith's scales darkened with fury. You dare insult the Craxian Empire." Reynolds chuckled. "Buddy, we're not just insulting you. We're clowning you. You came here expecting a serious war. Instead, we gave you the most embarrassing defeat in galactic history." He leaned forward. "So tell me, Vesrith, you want to keep going? Or do you want to run home and tell your emperor that the weak humans kicked your butt without even trying?" Silence filled the command deck of the Devourer. Vesrith could hear his officers breathing heavily, could feel their shame in the air. He knew the truth. This war was over, and humanity had laughed its way to victory. Vesrith sat frozen in his command chair, his claws digging into the armrests. His warriors had trained for centuries in the art of war, yet they had been outmatched by an enemy that refused to take war seriously. The humans had mocked them, toyed with them, and in the end, they had won, not with brute force, but with sheer, infuriating absurdity. The command deck of the Devourer was silent. No one spoke. No one dared to. The humiliation was too great. The once mighty Craxian war machine had been reduced to a galactic joke. They had landed on Earth as conquerors, and now they were running from water balloons and dancing holograms. Another transmission came through. Once again, it was General Marcus Reynolds. He was leaning back in his chair, tossing a small ball in the air, completely relaxed. "All right, Lizard King, here's the deal," Reynolds said with a smirk. "We could keep this up all day. Hell, we could probably charge tickets and make this an intergalactic comedy show. But let's be real. You've already lost." Vesrith bared his teeth. "We are not defeated," he growled. "We still have warships. We still have soldiers. The Craxian Empire does not surrender." Reynolds raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, then why are your troops already retreating?" Vesrith's eyes widened. He turned sharply to his officers. What is he talking about? One of his commanders hesitated before responding. Warlord, our ground forces are leaving. Entire battalions have abandoned their positions. Many are refusing to fight. Vesrith's breathing grew heavy. No, this is a lie. The Craxian Empire never retreats. Another officer swallowed hard. Sir, we have received thousands of resignation messages from our soldiers. Some have even requested asylum on Earth. Vesrith's mind reeled. His warriors, his elite warriors, were deserting. Reynolds grinned. Oh yeah, that's the best part. A lot of your guys actually like it here. They're saying humans are more fun than the Empire. And get this, some of them are even trying to become comedians. He chuckled. Turns out, your big, scary invasion turned into an interspecies friendship program. Vesrith's rage boiled over. He slammed his fist onto the console, cracking the metal. You mock us. You insult the honor of the Craxian Empire. Reynolds shrugged. Nah, man, you did that to yourselves the moment you tried to invade a planet full of people who think war is just another Tuesday. He leaned in, smirking. So what's it gonna be, big guy? You want to stick around and let the whole galaxy watch as we keep embarrassing you? Or are you gonna do the smart thing and leave while you still have some dignity left? Vesrith's claws curled into fists. He had never known shame like this. Never in the history of the Craxian Empire had they been forced into such a ridiculous, dishonorable defeat. But he knew the war was lost. With a deep, shuddering breath, he turned to his officers. Recall our forces, he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. His officers hesitated, as if they couldn't believe what they were hearing. Now, Vesrith roared. The command deck erupted into activity as orders were sent. Across the planet, Craxian troops, disheartened, confused, and thoroughly humiliated, began retreating. Dropships lifted off, fleeing Earth's surface. Warships disengaged, limping back toward the edge of the solar system. The humans watched as their would-be conquerors ran. On every human screen, across every news broadcast, one final message played. Earth, undefeated. Thanks for the latches, Craxians. Come back anytime. The galaxy would never let the Craxian Empire live this down. Vesrith sat in the darkened command chamber of the Devourer, his claws tapping restlessly against the metal armrest. The retreat had been issued, the fleets recalled, and the war, if it could even be called a war, was over. The mighty Craxian Empire had been humiliated, not by superior firepower or grand strategy, but by sheer, unrelenting absurdity. His warriors were broken, not physically. No, the humans had hardly hurt them. But mentally, spiritually, they had been shattered. Veterans who had once crushed entire civilizations now sat in silence, refusing to meet his gaze. The whispers spread quickly. The Empire's once glorious soldiers had been undone by pranks, jokes, and sheer madness. The transmission from Earth still echoed in his mind. Earth, undefeated. Thanks for he latches, Craxians. Come back anytime. Vesrith's claws tightened into a fist. How had this happened? How had a species that should have been beneath them turned the tables so completely? A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. Another transmission was incoming. But this time, it wasn't from the humans. It was from Craxia Prime. The face of High Emperor Xal Zareth filled the screen, his crimson eyes burning with fury. Vesrith, he growled, his voice low and dangerous. Explain yourself. Vesrith took a deep breath. My Emperor, the humans. You lost. The Emperor's voice was cold. You did not lose in combat. You did not lose in strategy. You lost to a mockery of war. Vesrith clenched his jaw. The humans fight. Differently. They weaponized humor, unpredictability, and psychological tactics we have never encountered. Our warriors were not prepared. Enough. The Emperor leaned forward. Do you realize what you have done? His voice dropped lower, barely above a whisper. Do you know what this means for the Empire? Vezrith swallowed hard. He did know. The Craxians had always ruled through fear. Their power was absolute because no species dared to challenge them. But now, the galaxy had witnessed the great Craxian Empire being laughed off a battlefield. They had seen warlords, conquerors, and elite warriors retreat because they could not handle Earth's madness. And worse, some of their own soldiers had stayed behind. Yes, Vezrith had seen the reports. Craxian warriors who had defected, choosing to remain on Earth instead of returning to the Empire. Some were learning human comedy. Some were joining their entertainment industries. And some had even gone so far as to adopt human mannerisms. The rot had already begun to spread. Emperor Xalzareth exhaled slowly. Our empire is built on dominance. Our rule is enforced through fear. But now, the fear is gone. The other races are watching, Vezrith, and soon they will realize a terrible truth. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. We are no longer feared. The weight of those words crashed down on Vezrith like a collapsing star. The Empire had not just lost a battle. They had lost their reputation, their power, and in time, they might lose everything. The silence on the Devourer's command deck was suffocating. Vezrith remained frozen in his chair long after the Emperor's transmission had ended. His mind raced through every possible outcome, every consequence of their failure. The Craxian Empire had spent thousands of years crafting its image as the galaxy's supreme power, a force of unstoppable might. Now, with one failed invasion, that image had been shattered. Whispers of rebellion would spread. Weak, subjugated races would find courage. Allies would begin to question their loyalty. Enemies who once cowered would start sharpening their blades. And at the center of it all was Earth. A backwater planet the Empire had dismissed for centuries had now become the most dangerous force in the galaxy, not because of their technology, not because of their military, but because of their mindset. They had faced the Empire's greatest warriors, the deadliest fleet in the known universe, and instead of fearing them, they had laughed. And that laughter was still spreading. Vezrith turned to his officers. Every one of them wore the same haunted expression. Shame clung to them like a heavy fog, but beneath it, there was something far worse, uncertainty, the kind that infected an empire and rotted it from the inside. Order all warships to black out communications, Vezrith finally commanded. No signals, no messages, no further reports to the core worlds. One of his commanders hesitated. Warlord, the Emperor expects updates. If we allow these transmissions to continue, the entire galaxy will mock us before we even return home. Vezrith snapped. The humans will spread their victory far and wide. If we are to salvage any part of our honor, we must control the flow of information. The officer swallowed hard, then nodded. Understood. Vezrith's claws tapped against the armrest. Set course for Craxia Prime. Maximum speed. The war was over. The Empire had lost. But what came next would be far worse than any battlefield defeat. The galaxy had changed, and the Craxian Empire would never be the same again. Meanwhile, on Earth, General Marcus Reynolds sat back in his chair, watching as the last Craxian warships disappeared into deep space. A slow grin spread across his face. Well, that was fun. A young officer chuckled beside him. Sir, do you think they'll ever come back? Reynolds sipped his coffee and shrugged. Maybe. But if they do, he smirked, we'll have new jokes ready. Laughter erupted around the command center. Humanity had faced an empire that had ruled through fear, and they had won by refusing to be afraid. The message had been sent. The galaxy now knew the truth. Earth was no longer just another world. It was a problem, a wild card. And if any other empire thought about invading, they'd better be ready to laugh.